Have you ever wondered why some people seem to have an endless well of energy and drive, while the others struggle to get out of bed each morning? Why do some individuals push through challenges with unwavering determination, while others give up at the first sign of difficulty? The answer lies not in some mysterious genetic code or secret formula, but in the profound difference between external and internal motivation. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of inner motivation, that powerful force that comes from within and can transform not just what we do, but who we become. Hello everyone, I'm Michael Harris, and welcome to another episode where we explore the intricate workings of the human mind. In the next hour, we'll uncover the scientific methods that can dramatically boost your inner motivation, moving you from a state of external dependence to internal empowerment. We'll explore groundbreaking research from psychology, neuroscience, and behavioral economics that reveals exactly how to cultivate sustainable motivation that doesn't rely on external rewards or pressure from others. Let's start with a startling observation. In our modern world, we're surrounded by more motivational content than ever before, inspirational quotes on social media, self-help books promising instant transformation, motivational speakers delivering high-energy presentations. Yet, paradoxically, rates of depression, anxiety, and feelings of meaninglessness continue to rise. This isn't coincidence. It's because most of these approaches focus on external motivators rather than building genuine internal drive. They're like sugar rushes for the soul, providing temporary energy that quickly crashes, leaving us more depleted than before. The truth is, external motivation is like borrowed energy. It comes from outside sources, praise from others, monetary rewards, social recognition, or fear of punishment. While these can be effective in the short term, they create a dangerous dependency. When the external source disappears, so does the motivation. Internal motivation, on the other hand, is like having your own renewable energy source. It comes from within, it's sustainable, and it grows stronger with use rather than depleting over time. But what exactly is internal motivation, and how does it differ from its external counterpart? Internal motivation, also known as intrinsic motivation, is the drive that comes from the inherent satisfaction and enjoyment we get from an activity itself. It's the difference between reading a book because you're genuinely curious about the subject versus reading it because you have to pass a test. It's the difference between exercising because you love how it makes you feel versus exercising because you want others to see your physique. The distinction might seem subtle, but the implications are profound. When we're internally motivated, we experience what psychologists call autonomous motivation. We feel like the authors of our own actions, the captains of our own ships. This sense of autonomy doesn't just feel good, it fundamentally changes how our brains respond to challenges, setbacks, and opportunities. Now, let's delve into the scientific foundation of internal motivation, starting with one of the most influential theories in psychology, self-determination theory, developed by Edward Deci and Richard Ryan. After decades of research involving thousands of participants across cultures, they identified three fundamental psychological needs that, when satisfied, naturally boost internal motivation: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy is perhaps the most crucial of these three needs. It's not about being independent or isolated. Rather, it's about having a sense of volition and choice in your actions. When we feel autonomous, we experience our behavior as emanating from our own interests and values rather than from external pressures or internal compulsions. Research shows that when people feel more autonomous in their work, relationships, and personal pursuits, they report higher levels of well-being, creativity, and persistence. But here's where it gets interesting. Autonomy isn't just about having choices, it's about having meaningful choices that align with our deeper values and interests. A study conducted with college students found that those who chose their major based on personal interest rather than external expectations showed higher levels of intrinsic motivation, better academic performance, and greater psychological well-being throughout their college years. The power of autonomy extends far beyond individual choices. It shapes our entire relationship with effort and achievement. The second fundamental need is competence, the feeling that we can effectively interact with our environment and achieve desired outcomes. Competence isn't about being perfect or the best at everything. It's about experiencing a sense of effectiveness and growth. When we feel competent, we're more likely to take on challenges, persist through difficulties, and enjoy the process of learning and improving. Interestingly, Research has shown that the need for competence is so fundamental that it affects motivation even at a subconscious level. In one fascinating study, participants who were subliminally exposed to words related to achievement and competence showed increased motivation and performance on subsequent tasks, even though they weren't consciously aware of seeing these words. This suggests that our brains are constantly scanning for signals of competence and adjusting our motivation accordingly. The third need, relatedness, involves feeling connected to others and experiencing a sense of belonging. Humans are fundamentally social creatures, and our motivation is deeply intertwined with our relationships and social connections. When we feel supported, understood, and valued by others, our internal motivation flourishes. Conversely, when we feel isolated or disconnected, even activities we once enjoyed can lose their appeal. But relatedness goes beyond just having people around us. It's about quality relationships where we feel seen, heard, and appreciated for who we truly are. Research in organizational psychology has consistently shown that employees who feel a strong sense of connection with their colleagues and supervisors are more intrinsically motivated, more creative, and more likely to go above and beyond their job requirements. Now that we understand these three fundamental needs, let's explore how we can practically nurture them in our daily lives. To enhance autonomy, start by regularly checking in with yourself about why you're doing what you're doing. Ask yourself, is this activity aligned with my values and interests? Am I doing this because I genuinely want to, or because I feel I should? When you find yourself motivated primarily by external factors, see if you can reframe the activity in terms of your own goals and values. For example, if you're studying for a certification primarily because your employer requires it, try to identify aspects of the material that genuinely interest you or ways the knowledge could benefit your personal goals. This isn't about tricking yourself, it's about finding authentic connections between external requirements and internal values. The more you can align your daily activities with your deeper purposes, the more autonomous and motivated you'll feel. To build competence, focus on creating opportunities for skill development and growth. Set learning goals rather than just performance goals. Instead of simply aiming to achieve a specific outcome, focus on what you can learn from the process. Celebrate small improvements and view setbacks as learning opportunities rather than failures. Keep a learning journal where you document not just what you achieved, but what you learned along the way. One powerful technique for building competence is what researchers call optimal challenge. Seek out tasks that are challenging enough to stretch your abilities, but not so difficult that they feel impossible. This sweet spot, often called the zone of proximal development, is where we experience the most growth and the greatest sense of competence. When a task becomes too easy, add complexity or find ways to enhance the challenge. When it becomes too difficult, break it down into smaller, more manageable steps. For relatedness, invest time and energy in building meaningful connections with others. This doesn't necessarily mean expanding your social circle. Rather, it means deepening the relationships you already have. Practice active listening, show genuine interest in others' experiences, and share your own authentic thoughts and feelings. Look for opportunities to collaborate and support others in their goals. Interestingly, research has shown that giving support to others actually boosts our own motivation more than receiving support. When we help others achieve their goals, we experience a sense of competency and connection that enhances our own internal motivation. This creates a positive feedback loop where supporting others ultimately supports our own growth and motivation. Moving beyond self-determination theory, let's explore another crucial aspect of internal motivation, the concept of flow. Flow, first identified and extensively studied by psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, is a state of complete immersion and engagement in an activity. When we're in flow, we lose track of time, our self-consciousness disappears, and we feel fully present and absorbed in what we're doing. Flow isn't just a pleasant experience, it's also a powerful source of internal motivation. People who regularly experience flow in their activities report higher levels of life satisfaction, better performance, and stronger intrinsic motivation. The beautiful thing about flow is that it can occur in almost any activity, from playing music to solving complex problems, from gardening to having deep conversations. To understand flow better, let's examine its key characteristics. First, there's a clear sense of goals and immediate feedback. In flow activities, we know what we're trying to achieve, and we get regular information about how we're doing. Second, there's a balance between challenge and skill. The activity is neither too easy nor too difficult. It requires our full attention and capabilities. Third, action and awareness merge. We're not thinking about what we're doing, we're simply doing it with complete focus. Fourth, there's a loss of self-consciousness. The inner critic that usually monitors and judges our performance becomes quiet, allowing us to engage fully without worry about how we appear to others. Fifth, time seems to transform hours can feel like minutes when we're deeply engaged. Finally, the activity becomes autotelic. It's worth doing for its own sake, not for any external reward. The implications of flow research for motivation are profound. When we structure our activities to promote flow experiences, we naturally increase our internal motivation. We begin to seek out challenges not for external rewards, but for the inherent satisfaction of full engagement and growth. To cultivate flow in your life, start by identifying activities where you naturally tend to lose track of time and feel deeply engaged. These are often your flow activities. Then, look for ways to expand flow into other areas of your life. Set clear goals for your activities, seek immediate feedback on your progress, and constantly adjust the challenge level to match your growing skills. One practical technique is to create flow triggers, environmental or mental cues that help you enter a flow state more easily. This might be playing specific music, working in a particular location, or following APRI, activity ritual that signals to your brain that it's time for deep focus. Many athletes and performers use such rituals to consistently access peak performance states. Let's now shift our perspective to the neurological foundation of motivation. Understanding how motivation works in the brain can provide powerful insights into how we can enhance it. At the heart of motivation lies the brain's reward system, a complex network of neural pathways that evolve to help us survive and thrive. The key player in this system is dopamine, often misunderstood as the pleasure chemical. In reality, dopamine is more accurately described as the seeking or wanting chemical. It's released not when we achieve something pleasurable, but when we anticipate that we might achieve something valuable. This distinction is crucial for understanding motivation. When we're about to engage in an activity that our brain predicts will be rewarding, dopamine levels rise, creating a sense of motivation and energy. This is why anticipation often feels better than the actual achievement. The dopamine system is constantly making predictions about which activities will be rewarding and adjusting our motivation accordingly. But here's where modern life creates problems for our motivation. Our brains evolved in an environment where rewards were scarce and unpredictable. Today, we're surrounded by easily accessible rewards, from social media likes to junk food to entertainment. This constant stimulation can dysregulate our dopamine system, making us less sensitive to subtler rewards and reducing our motivation for challenging, but ultimately fulfilling activities. The solution isn't to eliminate all pleasurable experiences, but to become more intentional about how we engage with them. One approach is called dopamine fasting, periodically abstaining from high stimulus activities to reset your brain's sensitivity to rewards. This doesn't mean sitting in a dark room doing nothing. Rather, it means choosing lower stimulus activities that allow your brain's reward system to recalibrate. Another neurological factor that affects motivation is the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for executive functions like planning, decision-making, and self-control. When the prefrontal cortex is stressed or fatigued, our ability to maintain motivation decreases significantly. This is why motivation often wanes when we're tired, stressed, or emotionally overwhelmed. To support prefrontal cortex function and maintain healthy motivation, prioritize activities that restore mental energy, adequate sleep, regular exercise, meditation, and time in nature. These aren't just nice to haves, they're essential for maintaining the neurological foundation of motivation. The social brain also plays a crucial role in motivation. Mirror neurons, which fire both when we perform an action and when we observe others performing the same action, help explain why motivation can be contagious. When we're around motivated, goal-oriented people, our own motivation naturally increases. Conversely, spending time with unmotivated individuals can drain our own drive. This social aspect of motivation extends to what psychologists call social proof. We look to others to understand what's normal, valuable, and worth pursuing. If everyone around us values external rewards like money and status, we're more likely to be externally motivated. If we surround ourselves with people who pursue growth, learning, and meaning, we're more likely to develop strong internal motivation. Let's explore goal-setting theory another cornerstone of motivation science. Traditional goal setting advice often emphasizes specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound transformative goals. While this framework can be useful, recent research suggests that the type of goals we set matters as much as how we set them. Intrinsic goals, those related to personal growth, relationships, and contributing to something larger than ourselves, tend to promote internal motivation and well-being. Extrinsic goals, those focused on wealth, fame, or image, often undermine intrinsic motivation and life satisfaction, even when achieved. This doesn't mean financial security or recognition are unimportant, but rather that when they become primary motivators, they can actually reduce our overall motivation and satisfaction. Research by Tim Kasser and others has shown that people who prioritize intrinsic goals report higher levels of well-being, better relationships, and more sustainable motivation. They're also more resilient in the face of setbacks and better at maintaining motivation over long periods. One powerful approach to goal setting is to focus on process goals rather than just outcome goals. Process goals are about the actions you take and the person you become, while outcome goals are about specific results you want to achieve. For example, instead of just setting a goal to run a marathon outcome, you might set goals around developing a consistent running practice, learning to enjoy movement, and building physical and mental resilience process. Process goals are particularly effective for internal motivation because they keep you engaged with the journey rather than fixated on the destination. They also give you multiple opportunities for success and growth rather than tying your sense of achievement to a single outcome. Another crucial aspect of goal setting for internal motivation is ensuring that your goals are concordant, aligned with your authentic interests, values, and sense of self. Goals that feel imposed by others or that don't reflect your true interests are less likely to sustain motivation over time. Take time to reflect on whether your goals genuinely excite and inspire you, or whether you're pursuing them primarily to meet others' expectations. Now let's delve into the role of mindfulness in motivation. Mindfulness, the practice of paying attention to the present moment without judgment, might seem unrelated to motivation at first glance. After all, isn't motivation about moving toward future goals? However, research has consistently shown that mindfulness practices can significantly enhance intrinsic motivation. Mindfulness enhances motivation in several ways. First, it increases self-awareness, helping us recognize our authentic interests and values. When we're more aware of what truly matters to us, we're better able to align our actions with our deeper purposes. Second, mindfulness reduces the impact of external pressures and social comparisons, allowing our intrinsic motivations to emerge more clearly. Third, mindfulness helps us appreciate the process rather than just focusing on outcomes. When we represent and engage with what we're doing, the activity itself becomes more rewarding, reducing our dependence on external validation or future achievements. Fourth, mindfulness reduces stress and anxiety, which can interfere with motivation and performance. One specific mindfulness practice that can boost motivation is called values clarification. This involves regularly reflecting on what's most important to you and how your current activities align with those values. You might ask yourself questions like, what kind of person do I want to be? What do I want my life to stand for? How do my current activities reflect or contradict these values? Another powerful practice is mindful goal pursuit. Instead of rushing through tasks to reach the finish line, practice being fully present with each step of the process. Notice what you're thinking and feeling as you work toward your goals. Celebrate small progresses and learn from setbacks without harsh self-judgment. Loving kindness meditation, where you practice sending good wishes to yourself and others, can also enhance motivation by strengthening the relatedness component of intrinsic motivation. As you cultivate compassion for yourself and others, you may find that your motivation becomes less driven by ego and more connected to genuine care and contribution. The environment we create around ourselves has a profound impact on our motivation. Environmental psychology research shows that physical spaces can either support or undermine our psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness. A cluttered, chaotic environment can increase stress and reduce focus, while a well-organized, personalized space can enhance motivation and productivity. Consider how you can modify your environment to support intrinsic motivation. This might involve creating a dedicated space for focused work, surrounding yourself with objects that remind you of your values and goals, or removing distractions that pull you toward externally motivated behaviors. Even small changes like organizing your desk, adding plants, or displaying meaningful photos can have significant impacts on your motivation and well-being. The social environment is equally important. Jim Rohn's famous saying that "you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with" has scientific backing when it comes to motivation. Our social networks influence not just our behaviors, but our underlying motivations and values. If you're surrounded by people who are primarily motivated by external rewards, you're likely to adopt similar motivations. Conversely, if you spend time with people who pursue growth, learning, and meaning, you're more likely to develop strong intrinsic motivation. This doesn't mean you need to abandon all relationships that don't perfectly align with your values. Rather, it suggests being more intentional about who you spend time with and seeking out communities that support your authentic growth and development. Look for mentors, peers, and communities that value intrinsic motivation and personal development. Let's examine the role of habits in maintaining motivation over time. While motivation gets us started, habits keep us going when motivation fluctuates. The key is to build habits that support intrinsic motivation rather than undermine it. This means focusing on habits that serve your values and long-term well-being rather than just providing immediate gratification. One approach is to build keystone habits, small, consistent practices that naturally lead to positive changes in other areas of your life. For example, a morning meditation practice might increase self-awareness and emotional regulation, leading to better decisions throughout the day. A regular exercise routine might boost energy and confidence, enhancing motivation in work and relationships. When building new habits, focus on making them as easy and enjoyable as possible. The goal is to create positive associations with the behavior rather than viewing it as a burden or obligation. Start small, so small that it feels almost too easy, and gradually increase the complexity or intensity as the habit becomes established. Connection can be a powerful habit building tool. Sharing your goals and progress with others creates accountability, but more importantly, it creates opportunities for relatedness and support. Consider finding an accountability partner, joining a group with similar goals, or simply sharing your journey with friends and family who support your growth. Now let's explore the relationship between creativity and intrinsic motivation. Research consistently shows that intrinsic motivation is strongly linked to creative thinking and innovation. When we're internally motivated, we're more likely to take risks, explore novel solutions, and persist through creative challenges. Conversely, excessive focus on external rewards can actually inhibit creativity by narrowing our attention and making us more conservative in our thinking. This has important implications for how we approach creative work and problem solving. Instead of focusing primarily on external validation or rewards, try to cultivate genuine curiosity and interest in the creative process itself. Ask yourself, what fascinates me about this problem? What would I explore if there were no external constraints? How can I make this process more enjoyable and engaging? One technique for enhancing creative motivation is called play-based exploration. Instead of immediately trying to find the right answer or create the perfect product, give yourself permission to play, experiment, and explore. Set aside time for unstructured creative activity where the only goal is to see what emerges. This playful approach often leads to unexpected insights and innovations while maintaining high levels of intrinsic motivation. The concept of beginner's mind from Zen Buddhism can also enhance creative motivation. Approach familiar challenges with fresh eyes, as if you're encountering them for the first time. This reduces the pressure to perform based on past successes and increases openness to new possibilities and approaches. Let's address a common challenge: maintaining motivation during difficult times. Life inevitably includes periods of stress, setbacks, and uncertainty that can drain our motivation. During these times, it's especially important to focus on intrinsic rather than extrinsic motivators, as external rewards and recognition may become scarce or unreliable. One powerful approach during difficult times is to focus on what psychologists call post-traumatic growth, the positive psychological change that can result from struggling with challenging circumstances. Instead of viewing difficulties solely as obstacles to overcome, try to identify ways they might contribute to your personal growth, resilience, and understanding. Practicing gratitude can also help maintain motivation during tough times. Regular gratitude practice has been shown to increase positive emotions, improve relationships, and enhance intrinsic motivation. This doesn't mean forcing yourself to feel grateful for negative experiences, but rather noticing and appreciating the good things that exist alongside difficulties. Maintaining perspective is crucial during challenging periods. Remind yourself that difficulties are temporary and that you have the resources to cope and grow. Reflect on past challenges you've overcome and the strengths you demonstrated in those situations. Consider how current difficulties might be preparing you for future opportunities and growth. The role of meaning, making, and motivation cannot be overstated. Viktor Frankl's work with Holocaust survivors revealed that people can maintain motivation and resilience even in the most extreme circumstances when they find meaning in their experiences. This suggests that cultivating a sense of purpose and meaning is one of the most powerful tools for sustaining long-term motivation. Meaning making involves connecting our daily activities to larger purposes and values. This might mean viewing your work as a contribution to something important, seeing your relationships as opportunities for mutual growth, or understanding your challenges as part of a larger journey of development. The specific meaning you find is less important than the process of actively seeking and creating meaning in your experiences. One technique for enhancing meaning is called job crafting, reshaping how you think about and perform your work to make it more meaningful and engaging. This might involve emphasizing aspects of your work that align with your values, building stronger relationships with colleagues, or finding ways to use your unique strengths more fully. Even small changes in perspective can significantly enhance the meaning and motivation you experience in your work. Let's explore the intersection of motivation and learning. Intrinsic motivation is closely linked to effective learning and skill development. When we're internally motivated to learn, we engage more deeply with material, show greater persistence in the face of challenges, and demonstrate better long-term retention of knowledge and skills. One factor that enhances learning motivation is what researchers call epistemic curiosity, the desire to know and understand. Cultivating curiosity about subjects you want to learn can dramatically increase your motivation to engage with them. Instead of viewing learning as a chore or obligation, try to approach it with genuine wonder and interest. Ask yourself, what don't I understand about this topic that intrigues me? What questions emerge as I explore this subject? How might this knowledge change my understanding of the world or my ability to contribute to others? Framing learning in terms of curiosity and exploration rather than obligation can transform your relationship with the process. Another powerful motivator for learning is connecting new information to your existing knowledge and interests. Look for bridges between unfamiliar subjects and topics you already care about. This not only makes learning easier, but also makes it more personally relevant and engaging. The concept of productive failure can also enhance learning motivation. Instead of viewing mistakes and failures as signs of inadequacy, see them as valuable sources of information and growth. Research shows that people who embrace failure as part of the learning process are more resilient, creative, and ultimately successful than those who avoid all risks of failure. Physical health plays a crucial role in maintaining motivation. Regular exercise, adequate sleep, proper nutrition, and stress management aren't just good for your body, they're essential for maintaining the energy and mental clarity needed for strong motivation. When you're physically depleted, even activities you normally enjoy can feel burdensome. Exercise is particularly powerful for enhancing motivation. It increases the production of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin that support positive mood and motivation. It also provides opportunities for experiencing competence and growth as you build strength, endurance, or skill. Finally, exercise can be a form of moving meditation that enhances self-awareness and emotional regulation. Sleep quality significantly impacts motivation and decision-making. When we're sleep-deprived, our prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for self-control and long-term thinking, becomes less effective. This makes us more likely to choose immediate gratification over long-term goals and reduces our overall motivation for challenging activities. Nutrition also affects motivation through its impact on blood sugar levels, energy, and brain function. Eating regular, balanced meals helps maintain steady energy levels throughout the day, while excessive sugar or caffeine can create energy spikes followed by crashes that undermine motivation. The timing of activities can significantly impact motivation. Research shows that most people have natural rhythms of energy and focus throughout the day. Some people are most alert and motivated in the morning, while others peak in the afternoon or evening. Pay attention to your natural rhythms and try to schedule important tasks during times when your motivation and energy are naturally higher. You can also use the concept of ultradian rhythms, the 90-120-minute cycles of alertness and fatigue that occur throughout the day. Instead of trying to maintain constant focus, work with these natural cycles by taking breaks every 90 minutes or so to restore your mental energy and motivation. Technology can be both a help and a hindrance to motivation. While digital tools can provide support, tracking, and connection, they can also create distractions and dependencies that undermine intrinsic motivation. The key is to use technology intentionally rather than letting it use you. Consider conducting a technology audit to assess how your digital habits affect your motivation. Are there apps or websites that consistently leave you feeling drained, distracted, or comparing yourself unfavorably to others? Are there digital tools that genuinely support your goals and well-being? Make conscious choices about which technologies to embrace and which to limit or eliminate. Social media deserves special attention because of its powerful impact on motivation. While it can provide connection and inspiration, it can also fuel comparison, reduce attention span, and create addiction like patterns that undermine intrinsic motivation. If you choose to use social media, do so intentionally and mindfully, focusing on genuine connection rather than passive consumption or validation seeking. The concept of motivation contagion extends beyond immediate social circles to include the media we consume, the books we read, and the content we expose ourselves to. Just as spending time with motivated people can boost our own motivation, consuming inspiring, growth-oriented content can have similar effects. Choose books, podcasts, videos, and other media that align with and support your intrinsic motivations. Let's examine the role of self-compassion in maintaining motivation. Many people believe that being hard on themselves will increase their motivation, but research shows the opposite is true. Self-criticism and harsh judgment actually undermine motivation by activating stress responses and reducing resilience. Self-compassion, treating yourself with the same kindness you would show a good friend, is more effective for maintaining long-term motivation. Self-compassion has three key components: self-kindness instead of self-judgment, recognizing common humanity instead of feeling isolated, and mindfulness instead of over-identification with thoughts and emotions. When you experience setbacks or challenges, practice responding with understanding and encouragement rather than criticism and blame. This doesn't mean lowering your standards or avoiding responsibility for your actions. Rather, it means maintaining motivation through difficulties by treating yourself as an ally rather than an adversary. Research shows that compassionate people are more likely to learn from mistakes, bounce back from failures, and maintain motivation over time. The practice of self-forgiveness is particularly important for motivation. When we hold onto guilt and shame about past mistakes or failures, these emotions can drain our energy and motivation for future action. Learning to forgive yourself, acknowledging mistakes without letting them define you, frees up mental and emotional energy for positive action. Now let's explore advanced strategies for sustaining motivation over longer periods. One powerful approach is motivation cycling, alternating between periods of high intensity and recovery. Just as athletes cycle their training to prevent burnout and optimize performance, you can cycle your motivation by alternating between challenging periods and restorative ones. This might involve working intensively on projects for several weeks, then taking time for reflection, relaxation, and recharging. Or it might mean alternating between different types of activities throughout the week, some that stretch your abilities, and others that feel restorative and enjoyable. The key is to recognize that motivation naturally fluctuates and to work with these rhythms rather than against them. Motivation stacking is another useful technique. This involves linking new, challenging activities with things you already enjoy or are motivated to do. For example, if you enjoy listening to podcasts but want to exercise more, you might only allow yourself to listen to your favorite podcasts while exercising. This creates positive associations that make the challenging activity more appealing. The concept of implementation intentions can also boost motivation. Instead of just setting goals, create specific if-then plans for when and how you'll pursue them. For example, instead of just planning to meditate regularly, you might create the implementation intention. If it's 7 a.m. on a weekday, then I will meditate for 10 minutes in my bedroom before checking my phone. These specific plans help translate a motivation into actual behavior. Temptation bundling. is a related strategy where you pair activities you need to do with activities you want to do. This might mean only watching your favorite TV show while doing household chores, or only eating at your favorite restaurant when you've completed a challenging work project. This creates positive incentives that support sustained motivation. Let's address the important topic of motivation in relationships. Our connections with others can either support or undermine our intrinsic motivation, and understanding this dynamic is crucial for maintaining healthy relationships and personal growth. Healthy relationships support all three components of intrinsic motivation: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. In relationships that support autonomy, both people feel free to be themselves, express their authentic interests and values, and make choices that align with their personal growth. There's mutual respect for each other's individuality and goals, rather than pressure to conform or suppress authentic desires. Competence, supporting relationships involve encouraging each other's growth and celebrating achievements. Partners provide constructive feedback, offer support during challenges, and recognize each other's strengths and progress. They avoid comparison or competition that might undermine each other's sense of effectiveness. Relatedness in healthy relationships involves genuine care, understanding, and acceptance. Both people feel valued for who they are rather than what they achieve or provide. There's emotional safety that allows for vulnerability and authentic connection. If you find that certain relationships consistently drain your motivation or pressure you toward external motivators, it may be worth evaluating these connections. This doesn't necessarily mean ending relationships, but rather setting boundaries, having honest conversations, or spending more time with people who support your authentic growth. The concept of motivational interviewing, developed by therapists, can be useful for supporting others' intrinsic motivation. Instead of trying to convince or pressure someone to change, motivational interviewing involves asking open-ended questions, listening empathetically, and helping people explore their own motivations for change. This approach respects autonomy while supporting growth and can be applied in personal relationships, parenting, and professional contexts. Financial motivation deserves special attention given its pervasive role in modern life. While money can certainly support the conditions for intrinsic motivation, providing security, resources for growth, and freedom from basic worries, it can also become an external motivator that undermines intrinsic drive when overemphasized. Research shows that once basic needs are met, additional income has diminishing returns on happiness and motivation. More importantly, people who prioritize financial gain above other values often experience reduced well-being and motivation, even when they achieve financial success. This suggests that while financial security is important, making money the primary motivator can be counterproductive. One approach is to view money as a tool that supports your intrinsic motivations rather than as an end in itself. Ask yourself, how can financial resources support my authentic goals and values? What would I do if money weren't a concern? How can I earn money in ways that align with my interests and contribute to something meaningful? Values-based budgeting is a practical application of this principle. Instead of just tracking expenses by category, consider how your spending aligns with your deeper values and priorities. Allocate more resources toward activities and experiences that support your intrinsic motivations, and reduce spending on things that primarily serve external image or status. The relationship between work and motivation is complex in our modern economy. Many people spend the majority of their waking hours in jobs that fail to support their intrinsic motivations, leading to decreased well-being and life satisfaction. While not everyone has the luxury of immediately changing their work situation, there are ways to increase motivation within existing circumstances. Job crafting involves modifying aspects of your current job to make it more meaningful and engaging. This might include emphasizing tasks that utilize your strengths, building stronger relationships with colleagues, or reframing your work in terms of its contribution to larger purposes. Even small changes in how you approach your work can significantly impact your motivation and satisfaction. Developing side projects or hobbies that align with your intrinsic motivations can also help balance external work demands. These activities provide outlets for authentic self-expression and growth, helping to maintain overall motivation and well-being even when your primary work is less fulfilling. Long-term career planning that considers intrinsic motivation involves regularly assessing whether your work aligns with your values, interests, and desire for growth. This doesn't necessarily mean changing careers, but rather making conscious choices about how to develop professionally in ways that support rather than undermine your authentic motivations. The role of challenge and motivation is particularly important to understand. While many people avoid challenges to maintain comfort, research shows that appropriate challenges are essential for maintaining motivation and growth. The key is finding the right level of challenge, what researchers call the optimal challenge zone. Challenges that are too easy lead to boredom and decreased motivation. We become disengaged when there's no opportunity for growth or when success feels guaranteed. Challenges that are too difficult lead to anxiety and eventual burnout. We become overwhelmed when demands exceed our capabilities and resources. Optimal challenges stretch our abilities without overwhelming them. They require effort and skill while remaining achievable. This sweet spot promotes flow states, builds competence, and maintains high levels of intrinsic motivation. The optimal challenge zone is dynamic. As your skills grow, you need to increase at the challenge level to maintain engagement. One strategy for maintaining optimal challenge is progressive overload, gradually increasing the difficulty or complexity of activities as your skills develop. This principle, borrowed from physical training, applies to any domain where you want to maintain motivation and continue growing. Whether you're learning a language, developing a skill, or working on personal development, regularly assess whether that challenge level still promotes growth without causing overwhelm. Challenge stacking involves combining multiple smaller challenges to create an appropriate overall difficulty level. For example, if individual tasks feel too easy, you might combine them or add time constraints, creative elements, or collaboration requirements to increase engagement. The concept of anti-fragility, introduced by Nassim Taleb, offers another perspective on challenges and motivation. Anti-fragile systems don't just survive stress, they actually grow stronger from it. You can develop anti-fragility in your motivation by viewing challenges and setbacks not as threats to avoid, but as opportunities to build resilience and capabilities. This mindset shift transforms difficulties from motivation killers into motivation builders. When you encounter obstacles, ask yourself, how might this challenge help me grow? What strengths am I developing by working through this difficulty? How will overcoming this obstacle prepare me for future opportunities? Let's examine the intersection of spirituality and motivation. While spirituality means different things to different people, research consistently shows that people with a sense of spiritual connection, whether through organized religion, nature, meditation, or other practices, tend to have higher levels of intrinsic motivation and life satisfaction. Spiritual practices often naturally support the three pillars of intrinsic motivation. They can enhance autonomy by connecting us with our deeper values and authentic self. They build competence through skill development and personal growth. And they foster relatedness through connection with something larger than ourselves, whether that's a community, nature, or a sense of universal connection. You don't need to adopt specific religious beliefs to benefit from spiritual approaches to motivation. The key elements seem to be regular practices that promote reflection and self-awareness, connection with values larger than immediate self-interest, and experiences of awe, gratitude, or transcendence that put daily concerns in perspective. Purpose meditation is one practice that can enhance motivation regardless of specific spiritual beliefs. This involves regular reflection on questions like, what is my unique contribution to the world? How do my daily actions serve something larger than myself? What legacy do I want to leave? What would I regret not doing if I knew my time was limited? The concept of sacred time can also boost motivation. This involves setting aside regular periods daily, weekly, or monthly that are dedicated to activities that connect you with your deepest values and purposes. During sacred time, you might engage in meditation, journaling, creative expression, time miniature, or meaningful conversations. The key is that this time is protected from external demands and focused on inner connection and renewal. Let's explore motivation across different life stages. Motivation is not static, it evolves as we grow and change throughout our lives. Understanding these natural shifts can help us adapt our approaches to maintain strong intrinsic motivation across decades. In young adulthood, motivation often centers around identity formation, skill development, and establishing independence. The key challenges are learning to differentiate between authentic interests and external expectations, developing competence across various domains, and building meaningful relationships. Young adults benefit from exploration, experimentation, and gradual increases in responsibility and autonomy. During middle adulthood, motivation often shifts toward productivity, contribution, and leaving a mark in the world. This can be a time of great fulfillment as skills and experiences converge to enable meaningful contribution. However, it can also be a time of crisis if people realize they've been pursuing externally motivated goals that don't align with their authentic values. Midlife motivation often benefits from reassessment, realignment with core values, and integration of different life aspects. In later life, motivation may focus more on meaning, making, generativity, and legacy. There can be great wisdom and freedom in this stage as external pressures diminish and authentic priorities become clearer. However, challenges like health changes, loss of loved ones, and societal ageism can impact motivation. Older adults often benefit from opportunities to share wisdom, engage in mentoring, and find new sources of meaning and contribution. Throughout all life stages, maintaining flexibility and openness to growth is crucial for sustaining motivation. What motivates us at 25 may not motivate us at 45 or 65, and that's not only normal but healthy. Regular life reviews and adjustments help ensure that our pursuits remain aligned with our evolving, authentic selves. The role of tradition and ritual in motivation is often overlooked in our modern emphasis on innovation and change. However, meaningful traditions and rituals can provide powerful support for intrinsic motivation by creating structure, meaning, and connection. Positive traditions create anticipation and mark important transitions. They can help us celebrate achievements, process challenges, and maintain connection with our values. Family traditions, cultural practices, or personal rituals can anchor us during difficult times and provide continuity as other aspects of life change. Creating personal rituals around important activities can enhance motivation by making them feel more significant and enjoyable. This might involve special morning routines that prepare you for focused work, celebration rituals that acknowledge achievements, or reflection rituals that help process experiences and plan future actions. Micro rituals, small, consistent practices that bookend important activities, can be particularly powerful. For example, taking 3 deep breaths before beginning work, playing a specific song before exercising, or spending a few minutes in gratitude before sleep. These small practices signal to your brain that something important is about to happen or has been completed, enhancing engagement and satisfaction. Let's address procrastination, one of the most common obstacles to sustained motivation. While procrastination is often viewed as a character flaw or lack of willpower, research reveals it's usually a coping mechanism for negative emotions like anxiety, fear of failure, or feeling overwhelmed. Understanding the emotional roots of procrastination is the first step in addressing it. When you notice yourself procrastinating, pause and ask, what am I feeling right now? What about this task feels threatening or uncomfortable? Often, procrastination signals that we need to break down tasks into smaller steps, address underlying fears, or reconnect with the meaningful aspects of our work. The 2-minute rule can help overcome initial resistance. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. For larger tasks, commit to working for just 2 minutes. This reduces the emotional barrier to starting and often leads to continued momentum once you've begun. Another effective approach is time boxing, committing to work on something for a specific, limited amount of time. Knowing that you only need to engage for, say, 25 minutes can reduce the sense of overwhelming commitment that often triggers procrastination. The Pomodoro technique, which involves working in focused 25-minute intervals followed by short breaks, applies this principle systematically. Addressing perfectionism is often crucial for overcoming procrastination. Many people delay starting tasks because they want conditions to be perfect or because they fear their efforts won't be good enough. Embracing good enough as a starting point and remembering that you can always improve later can help overcome perfectionist paralysis. The environment plays a crucial role in either enabling or reducing procrastination. Remove or reduce the obvious distractions, create dedicated spaces for focused work, and surround yourself with cues that remind you of your goals and values. Sometimes, simply changing your physical location can break procrastination patterns and renew motivation. Let's examine motivation in the context of learning and skill development. Lifelong learning is increasingly important in our rapidly changing world, but maintaining motivation for continuous learning can be challenging without understanding the psychological factors involved. The concept of growth mindset, popularized by Carol Dweck, is fundamental to learning motivation. People with growth mindsets believe that abilities can be developed through effort, and learning, while those with fixed mindsets believe abilities are static traits. Growth mindset directly enhances intrinsic motivation for learning by making effort feel worthwhile and setbacks feel like learning opportunities rather than evidence of inadequacy. Developing a growth mindset involves paying attention to your internal dialogue about abilities and challenges. When you catch yourself thinking, "I'm just not good at this," or "I'll never understand this," try reframing with, "I'm not good at this yet," or "I need a different approach to understand this." This subtle shift can significantly impact your motivation to persist through learning challenges. Another key factor in learning motivation is learning goal orientation versus performance goal orientation. Learning goals focus on understanding, mastering skills, and growing knowledge, while performance goals focus on demonstrating ability and looking smart. Research consistently shows that learning goals promote greater intrinsic motivation, resilience, and long-term achievement. You can enhance learning goal orientation by focusing on questions like, what can I learn from this experience? How does this new information connect with what I already know? What would I like to understand better? Rather than how do I look? Will others be impressed? Am I performing better than others? Deliberate practice, as defined by Anders Ericsson, involves focused, effortful practice specifically designed to improve performance. This type of practice naturally builds competence and can enhance intrinsic motivation when approached properly. Deliberate practice involves identifying specific weaknesses, designing exercises to address them, seeking feedback, and constantly pushing beyond your comfort zone in systematic ways. However, deliberate practice can become externally motivated if it's pursued solely for performance outcomes. To maintain intrinsic motivation during deliberate practice, regularly connect with your deeper reasons for improvement, celebrate small progresses, and maintain curiosity about the learning process itself. The concept of interleaving in learning can also boost motivation by preventing boredom and promoting deeper understanding. Instead of focusing intensively on one skill or topic for extended periods, interleaving involves mixing different skills or subjects within practice sessions. This approach often feels more engaging and leads to better long-term retention and transfer of learning. Let's explore motivation in creative endeavors. Creativity presents unique motivational challenges because a creative work often involves uncertainty, vulnerability, and the risk of failure or criticism. Yet creativity can also be one of the most intrinsically rewarding activities when approached properly. One key to maintaining motivation in creative work is embracing the process over the product. While a natural excitement about creating something wonderful is normal, becoming overly attached to specific outcomes can paradoxically inhibit both creativity and motivation. Focus on enjoying the act of creation itself, the exploration, experimentation, and discovery that happens along the way. Creative constraints can enhance rather than limit motivation. Having unlimited options can be overwhelming and paralyzing. Self-imposed constraints like writing a poem with specific structure, creating art with limited materials, or solving problems with certain restrictions can spark creativity and make projects feel more manageable and focused. The concept of creative courage involves willingness to create imperfect work, share vulnerable expressions, and risk criticism or failure. Building creative courage gradually through small acts of creative sharing can enhance motivation by reducing the fear that often inhibits creative expression. Start by sharing work with trusted friends or in supportive communities before expanding to broader audiences. Creative rituals can support sustained motivation in creative work. These might include specific routines that signal the beginning of creative time, environmental setups that inspire creativity, or practices that help access creative states of mind. Many creative professionals develop elaborate rituals around their work because these practices help maintain motivation and access creative flow states consistently. Collaboration can be a powerful motivator in creative work. While creativity often feels like a solitary endeavor, sharing ideas, receiving feedback, and building on others' suggestions can enhance both the quality of work and the enjoyment of the process. Look for opportunities to collaborate with others, join creative communities, or participate in group projects or challenges. Now let's address motivation during major life transitions. Changes like starting new jobs, moving to new places, ending relationships, or experiencing loss can disrupt established motivation patterns and require deliberate attention to maintain psychological well-being and forward momentum. During transitions, it's normal for motivation to fluctuate as you adjust to new circumstances and reevaluate priorities. Rather than fighting these fluctuations, try to work with them by allowing time for processing, reflection, and gradual adjustment to new routines and goals. Transition rituals can help maintain motivation during periods of change. These might involve ceremonies that acknowledge endings and beginnings, regular reflection practices that help process emotions and experiences, or new routines that provide stability amid change. Even simple rituals like journaling about the transition or creating symbolic acts of letting go and welcoming new chapters can provide psychological anchoring. Maintaining connection with core values and identity during transitions helps preserve intrinsic motivation even as external circumstances change dramatically. Ask yourself, what aspects of who I am remain constant despite these changes? How can I express my core values in this new situation? What opportunities does this transition create for growth and authentic expression? Seeking support during transitions is crucial for maintaining motivation. This might involve professional counseling, support groups, trusted friends, or mentors who can provide perspective and encouragement. Don't hesitate to reach out for help when needed. Seeking support is a sign of wisdom, not weakness. Building new routines and habits that support motivation in your changed circumstances takes time and patience. Start with small, manageable changes rather than trying to rebuild your entire life at once. Focus on establishing 1 or 2 key routines that support your well-being and values, then gradually expand from there. Let's explore motivation in the context of social impact and contribution. Many people find that their intrinsic motivation increases when they connect their actions to positive impact on others or society. This aligns with the relatedness component of self-determination theory and can provide powerful, sustainable motivation. However, it's important to distinguish between authentic altruistic motivation and external pressure to be helpful or make a difference. True altruistic motivation comes from genuine care and connection rather than obligation or image management. Reflect on whether your desire to help others stems from authentic empathy and values or from external expectations and pressure. Micro contributions can build motivation for larger social impact. These involve small, daily actions that benefit others or the environment, like helping a colleague, volunteering briefly, making eco-friendly choices, or simply showing kindness to strangers. These actions require no major life changes, but can create a sense of meaning and connection that enhances overall motivation. Finding ways to use your unique strengths and interests in service of others can create particularly powerful motivation. Rather than forcing yourself into conventional helping roles that don't align with your abilities, look for ways to contribute that utilize what you're naturally good at and enjoy doing. This creates win-win situations where you're intrinsically motivated by the work itself while also benefiting others. Impact awareness involves regularly connecting with the positive effects of your contributions, no matter how small. This might mean reading thank you notes from people you've helped, seeing statistical evidence of the difference your work makes, or simply observing positive changes in people around you. Maintaining awareness of your impact helps sustain motivation during difficult or monotonous periods. The concept of enlightened self-interest recognizes that helping others ultimately benefits yourself as well through increased life satisfaction, stronger relationships, and contributing to a better world for everyone. This perspective can help overcome the false dichotomy between self-care and other care, showing how authentic motivation often involves pursuing your own well-being in ways that also benefit others. Let's address motivation and technology once more, but with a focus on using digital tools to enhance rather than undermine intrinsic motivation. While technology can certainly be distracting and addictive, it can also provide powerful support for goal pursuit, learning, and connection when used intentionally. Quantified self approaches involve using technology to track various aspects of your life, from physical activity to mood to productivity to creative output. When used mindfully, this data can provide valuable insights into patterns that affect your motivation and help you make more informed decisions about your habits and environment. However, quantified self practices can become externally motivating if you become overly focused on metrics rather than underlying experiences and values. The key is using data as feedback to support intrinsic goals rather than letting metrics become the primary motivation. Ask yourself, does this tracking help me understand myself better and make choices aligned with my values? Or has it become an external pressure to perform for the numbers? Gamification applies game design elements to non-game activities to increase engagement and motivation. When done well, Gamification can tap into intrinsic motivations like competence, autonomy, and relatedness. Elements like progress tracking, achievement recognition, and social connection can genuinely enhance motivation for challenging activities. However, gamification becomes problematic when it relies primarily on external rewards like points, badges, or leaderboards that don't connect to genuine accomplishment or growth. Effective gamification should enhance the intrinsic satisfaction of activities rather than replacing it with artificial rewards. Digital communities can provide powerful support for motivation through connection with like-minded individuals, accountability, and shared learning. Online forums, social networking groups focused on specific interests or goals, and virtual learning communities can help satisfy the relatedness component of intrinsic motivation, especially for people in geographical areas lacking local communities aligned with their interests. When participating in digital communities, focus on genuine connection and mutual support rather than self-promotion or comparison. Share your authentic journey, including struggles and failures, and offer support to others facing similar challenges. This approach builds the kind of meaningful relationships that truly support intrinsic motivation. Now let's examine motivation from an evolutionary perspective to understand why certain strategies work so well. Our brains evolved in small social groups where cooperation, skill development, and innovation were essential for survival. Understanding these evolutionary roots can help us design modern approaches to motivation that work with rather than against our nature. The desire for competence and mastery has deep evolutionary roots. Our ancestors who continuously improved their skills, whether in hunting, gathering, toolmaking, or social navigation, were more likely to survive and reproduce. This explains why we find skill development inherently satisfying when it's aligned with our interests and when we can see clear progress. The need for autonomy also makes evolutionary sense. While our ancestors lived in groups, those who could think independently, make good decisions, and lead when necessary had advantages. However, this autonomy was always balanced with group membership, which explains why pure independence without relatedness doesn't satisfy us. The relatedness drive evolved because humans are fundamentally social creatures who survived through operation. Our brains are wired to find meaning and motivation through connection with others and contribution to group welfare. This is why isolation undermines motivation even for highly independent people, and why social support enhances motivation for individual pursuits. Understanding these evolutionary foundations can help us create environments and choose activities that naturally support motivation. Seek challenges that allow for skill development, ensure you have genuine equipoise in your pursuits, and maintain meaningful connections with others who support your growth. Evolutionary mismatches occur when modern environments trigger our evolved systems in ways that weren't problems for our ancestors but cause difficulties today. For example, our brains evolved to seek immediate rewards and avoid risks, but in our modern world, the most important goals often require delaying gratification and taking calculated risks. Being aware of these mismatches can help you work with your nature rather than against it. For instance, knowing that your brain naturally focuses on immediate rewards, you can structure your environment to make long-term goals feel more immediate and rewarding through regular milestones, visible progress tracking, and celebration of small wins. Let's explore motivation in different cultural contexts. While the basic psychological needs for autonomy, competence, and relatedness appear to be universal, the ways these needs are expressed and fulfilled vary significantly across cultures. Understanding cultural influences can help you find approaches to motivation that align with your cultural background while still supporting your individual growth. In individualistic cultures, autonomy often emphasizes personal choice, self-direction, and individual achievement. In collectivistic cultures, autonomy might be expressed through fulfilling roles within family or community contexts or through contributing to group harmony and success. Neither approach is superior. The key is finding expressions of autonomy that feel authentic within your cultural context. Similarly, competence might be measured primarily through individual achievement in some cultures, while in others it's measured through contribution to family or community welfare. Relatedness might emphasize close family bonds, community integration, or global humanitarian concern depending on cultural values. Cultural code switching involves adapting your approach to motivation depending on the cultural context you're operating in. This might mean emphasizing different aspects of your goals when communicating with people from different cultural backgrounds, or finding ways to honor both your individual desires and cultural expectations. The concept of cultural intelligence. The ability to function effectively in different cultural contexts can enhance motivation by expanding your options for fulfilling basic psychological needs. As our world becomes increasingly interconnected, developing cultural intelligence can open new pathways for growth, connection, and contribution. Let's address motivation in aging, as this presents unique challenges and opportunities that are often overlooked. Contrary to stereotypes, research shows that motivation doesn't inevitably decline with age. In fact, many older adults report higher levels of intrinsic motivation and life satisfaction than they experienced in younger years. Several factors can enhance motivation in later life. First, reduced external pressures from career advancement, social expectations, or financial pressure can create space for more authentic pursuits. Second, accumulated life experience can lead to greater clarity about what truly matters. Third, awareness of mortality can intensify focus on meaningful activities and relationships. However, aging also presents challenges to motivation, including health issues, loss of loved ones, reduced social roles, and societal ageism. Addressing these challenges requires both practical adaptations and mindset shifts. Physical health limitations require creative adaptations to maintain competence and autonomy. This might involve finding new ways to pursue familiar activities, exploring entirely new interests, better suited to current capabilities, or focusing more on mental and emotional growth when physical activities become limited. Social role transitions, such as retirement, empty nesting, or widowhood, require rebuilding identity and finding new sources of meaning and connection. This process takes time and patience, but can lead to authentic self-discovery and renewed motivation. Generative concerns. Desires to guide younger generations and contribute to the future often become more prominent with age and can provide powerful motivation. This might involve formal mentoring, sharing wisdom and skills, creative expression, or volunteer work that makes a lasting impact. Combating ageism, both from others and internalized, is crucial for maintaining motivation in later life. This involves challenging stereotypes about aging, continuing to set meaningful goals, staying engaged with current events and new ideas, and maintaining intergenerational relationships. Now let's explore the relationship between motivation and meaning in more depth. Viktor Frankl observed that people can endure almost any suffering if they can find meaning in it, and conversely, that lack of meaning can make even comfortable lives feel unbearable. This insight is crucial for understanding sustainable motivation. Meaning making is an active process, not something that happens automatically. It involves interpreting your experiences in ways that create coherence, purpose, and significance. Different people find meaning through different sources, relationships, creative expression, spiritual connection, learning, service to others, or leaving a legacy. Meaning maintenance involves regularly reflecting on and reinforcing the significance of your activities and experiences. This might include journaling about how your daily actions connect to larger purposes, discussing meaningful experiences with others, or creating rituals that acknowledge the significance of important events or transitions. The concept of post-traumatic growth demonstrates how meaning-making can transform even difficult experiences into sources of motivation and strength. People who experience growth after trauma often report increased appreciation for life, stronger relationships, greater awareness of personal strength, and enhanced spiritual or existential understanding. You can cultivate meaning, making skills by practicing perspective, taking on your own experiences. When facing challenges, ask yourself, how might this difficulty contribute to my growth? What strengths am I developing? How might this experience help me understand or help others? What positive changes might emerge from this situation? Legacy consciousness involves regularly considering what you want to leave behind, not just materially, but in terms of impact on others, contributions to knowledge or culture, or positive changes you've helped create. This long-term perspective can provide powerful motivation during difficult periods and help prioritize activities that create lasting value. Let's examine motivation in educational contexts, as this affects millions of people and shapes how we'll learn throughout our lives. Traditional educational approaches often rely heavily on external motivators like grades, competition, and standardized testing, which can undermine intrinsic motivation for learning. However, educational environments can be designed to support intrinsic motivation through several key principles. First, providing choices in learning topics, methods, or pacing supports autonomy. Second, ensuring appropriate challenge levels and focusing on mastery rather than performance supports competence. Third, creating collaborative learning environments and emphasizing learning community supports relatedness. Self-directed learning involves taking control of your educational journey by identifying your own learning goals, choosing appropriate resources and methods, and evaluating your progress. This approach naturally supports intrinsic motivation by ensuring that learning aligns with your interests and needs. Even within structured educational settings, you can enhance intrinsic motivation by connecting course content to your personal interests and goals, seeking additional challenges when material feels too easy, collaborating with classmates, and focusing on understanding rather than just memorizing information for tests. Passion-based learning involves pursuing subjects that genuinely fascinate you, regardless of their practical utility. While practical considerations are important, maintaining some purely interest-driven learning helps preserve the joy of discovery and understanding that motivates lifelong learning. The concept of learning how to learn, developing metacognitive skills about your own learning processes, can enhance motivation by making you more effective and confident as a learner. This includes understanding your learning style, developing effective study strategies, and learning to transfer knowledge between different domains. Let's address motivation in leadership contexts. Leaders face unique motivational challenges because they must maintain their own motivation while also inspiring and supporting others' intrinsic motivation. Effective leadership for intrinsic motivation involves modeling authentic engagement, creating environments that support autonomy, competence, and relatedness, and helping others connect their work to meaningful purposes. Transformational leadership focuses on inspiring and motivating others through vision, personal example, and individual consideration. This approach supports intrinsic motivation by helping people see how their contributions matter, providing opportunities for growth and development, and treating each person as a unique individual with their own motivations and aspirations. Servant leadership emphasizes serving others' growth and development rather than asserting power or control. Servant leaders support intrinsic motivation by removing obstacles to others' success, providing resources and support for growth, and prioritizing the development and well-being of their team members. When in leadership positions, regularly ask yourself, am I supporting or undermining others' autonomy through my leadership style? Am I providing appropriate challenges and support for competency development? Am I creating an environment where people feel connected and valued? Your answers can guide adjustments to your leadership approach. Even when you're not in formal leadership positions, you can exercise motivational leadership by supporting colleagues, intrinsic motivation, sharing your own authentic enthusiasm for meaningful work, and creating positive team dynamics that benefit everyone. Finally, let's explore creating a personal motivation system that integrates all these concepts into a coherent approach to living. A personal motivation system involves regular practices, environmental design, relationship choices, and decision-making frameworks that consistently support your intrinsic motivation. Start by conducting a motivation audit of your current life. Examine your daily activities, relationships, environment, and goals to assess how well they support your autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Identify areas where external motivators dominate and consider how you might shift toward more intrinsic approaches. Develop a motivation mission statement that articulates your core values, primary motivations, and vision for how you want to live. This statement can serve as a touchstone for decision-making and help you stay connected to what truly matters to you amid life's complexities and pressures. Create motivation practices, regular activities that nurture your intrinsic motivation. These might include daily reflection on your values and purposes, weekly reviews of your progress toward meaningful goals, monthly assessments of how well your activities align with your motivations, and annual deep reflections on your growth and direction. Design your environment to support intrinsic motivation by removing or minimizing factors that trigger extrinsic motivation or undermine your values. This might involve changing your physical workspace, adjusting your social media consumption, choosing different neighborhoods or social groups, or creating specific spaces dedicated to activities you find intrinsically rewarding. Build a motivation support network of people who share your values, support your authentic growth, and model intrinsic motivation in their own lives. This network might include mentors, peers pursuing similar goals, family members who understand your priorities, and possibly professional coaches or therapists who can provide additional support. Develop decision-making frameworks that prioritize intrinsic values. When facing important choices, ask yourself which option better supports my autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Which aligns more closely with my core values and long-term vision? Which would I choose if external pressures and expectations weren't factors? Remember that building sustainable, intrinsic motivation is a lifelong journey, not a destination. There will be periods when external pressures dominate, when your motivation fluctuates, or when you need to commit to your authentic purposes. This is normal and expected. The key is developing resilience and practices that help you return to intrinsic motivation when you notice you've drifted from it. As we conclude this comprehensive exploration of scientific methods to boost inner motivation, remember that the goal isn't to eliminate all external motivators from your life. That's neither possible nor necessary. Rather, the goal is to build a foundation of strong intrinsic motivation that makes you less dependent on external validation and more resilient in the face of challenges. The research is clear: people who are primarily intrinsically motivated are happier, more creative, more resilient, and more successful in the long term. They have better relationships, greater life satisfaction, and more sustainable energy for pursuing their goals. Most importantly, they experience a sense of authorship over their own lives. They feel like the protagonists in their own stories, rather than supporting characters in someone else's script. The journey towards stronger intrinsic motivation begins with a single step: paying attention to what genuinely energizes and engages you versus what drains your motivation or feels like obligation. From that foundation of self-awareness, you can begin building practices, relationships, and environments that support your authentic motivations and help you flourish as the unique individual you are. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of inner motivation. Remember, motivation isn't about finding some external secret or formula. It's about discovering and nurturing the powerful force that already exists within you. The science simply shows us how to remove the obstacles and create the conditions for that inner force to flourish. If this exploration has resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your own experiences with intrinsic motivation. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this valuable, consider subscribing to our channel and sharing this video with others who might benefit from understanding the science of inner motivation. Remember, one of the best ways to strengthen your own motivation is to help others discover theirs. Together, we can create a world where more people are driven by their authentic purposes rather than external pressures, and that's a world where everyone wins. Until next time, keep exploring the fascinating landscape of your own mind, and remember that the most powerful motivation has always been, and will always be, the kind that comes from within.